Okay, in this episode of The Liberal Black, we're going to be talking about why do we care what others think? Why do we care what others think about us? I was really thinking about that because the season 2, episode 1 of this podcast, I talked about some fairly intimate details with my struggle with weight loss. And in my mind, even as I made the podcast, after I posted the podcast, I was thinking, I could hear, I could hear a relative in my mind going, "What are you doing? Why are you talking about this to other people?" And and even then, I thought too about what about the people in my life I work with, I'm friends with, my Facebook friends, my Instagram friends, people who aren't necessarily the closest people to me. What might they think about it? What am I revealing about myself to these people? And even if, a family member or family members might think that it's, revealing too much information. And, I'm a 46-year-old, well, I'll be 46 soon, year old man. And why do I care about what these people have to say about what I'm doing as a grown person? And so I begin to think about that and kind of meditate on where this originates from, and I begin to do searches and research, what is the source typically of this type of thought? Because I know that millions of us have this same kind of apprehension that stops us from being our authentic self, that we make choices in our lives oftentimes based on being concerned about how other people will respond to our choices. So we make a choice or we don't make a choice, or we make a choice in a certain way or to a certain degree based on what the outcome that we're hoping to avoid or we're hoping to get. And so, in my research on this topic, I found that, essentially, the definition I found was that it's a mechanism by which we express a need for validation and for acceptance. And I'm thinking, well, is this something that is learned, or is this something that is nature? Is it learned or is it nature? And I don't know about you, but I'm sure we all have, well, maybe not all of us, I don't want to generalize, but for me personally, I can think of, as a young black boy, being admonished to never embarrass the family, to always be representing the family. In that documentary, Indian Matchmaking, I was talking to you about a couple episodes ago, the one on What's on TV, that episode, I was talking about about the Indian matchmaking, and there was a moment in that show where the mother was talking about when she came to America and how she told her children basically they had a couple of jobs, and these kids are probably 4 and 2, and their jobs were to never embarrass her and to basically always make her proud. And I don't know if that is a pervasive, thing for people of color. Definitely don't want to generalize, but I know that is kind of something that you hear often. And I know for me, that's probably where my self consciousness started as a kid. Being a black kid, living and functioning in white spaces, and thinking about always wanting to be accepted, thinking about always wanting to present myself in a manner that's acceptable and that is non-threatening, and that deals with a lot about what people think, that's invested a lot into what others think about how I move and how I function in the world. And then of course you take this idea that's maybe, and maybe some of it's innately human. Some of it may be just the process of us as human beings, but definitely a lot of it is taught, and then it's reinforced, of course, in school and in various ways. Maybe in some ways it can't be helped from how you perform in the classroom, and those who get rewarded, and those who don't, to how you have to perform for acceptance on the playground. Me being a very effeminate little boy, learning how that was not acceptable, learning how that that authentic whatever came to me naturally at that time, being particularly effeminate, was not okay, and that if I wanted to function, I had to look at how others were responding to me. And when I mean function, I mean if I wanted to survive from getting bullied and harassed, and whether that's at school or, you know, by family, who wants you to behave in a certain kind of way. And so you begin this process of changing yourself, of adapting yourself to to survive. Sometimes I wonder if I was a bit stronger, if I had been a bit more self assured as a kid, maybe I would have ended up, you know, performing in drag or something. That I would have been a drag superstar. Just because I'm just guessing based on my love of theater, my love of watching drag, and my love of performance, and but I don't. I mean, I don't know. I'm just guessing, but I'm just saying that anything feminine in that way, definitely, I tried to root out, because once again, I was seeking approval, seeking validation from outside sources. But then, getting back to the general question, we also we go from family, we go to school, and then we go to our professional lives, we go to our jobs, trying to appeal to our bosses that we're doing a good job, and to our colleagues. I've sat on meetings where you are almost actually expected to have comments and have something to say even when you do not have anything to say. Or if someone has already said what you were thinking, but then you have to come back around. And mind you, I usually do not do this. I have grown beyond this. But you can feel that it's expected sometimes for you to, well, do you have something to contribute to this topic, Cleo? And then sometimes just I play the game, just to move things along in terms of, oh yeah, like Bob said, blah, 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 blah. Okay, there I've spoken. Because I'm of the school or the thought that if it's already been said, there's no need to repeat it. But I also recognize that in the workplace, when there's positioning for, when you're trying to position yourself so that your boss thinks of you as a smart person who's contributing to the team, that you might feel compelled to play that game. That you might feel compelled to comment where you really don't feel a need to comment. And you're doing that out of this idea of trying to show your value, to be for people to see your worth. But the question that I found myself in, or the situation I found myself in one time in a job, was, well, what happens when you're doing all those things that you know to do to perform for others, to seek others' approval, and you're literally doing a good job. You're literally performing your task that you've been assigned to do, but it's not received that way. That your work is not received positively. For whatever the reason might be, that's not necessarily the most important thing right now. But what happens when your contribution is devalued, or dispersions are cast about your efforts, but yet you have gotten caught up in this. You've gotten caught up in this this belief, this practice of managing your life in a way that is constantly seeking the approval of other people. What happens when your colleagues don't see the good in your choices, or they misinterpret or misunderstand something you tried to do that you think is positive, but they've interpreted it as a negative? What do if you're someone who has rested on being who rests on the judgment of others? Then this is a very problematic thing for you, right? I mean, it's like kryptonite to Superman. I mean, you're doomed in a certain way, because you no longer feel validated. You're not being validated. And this can happen in all kinds of relationships, not just the professional relationships, right? This can happen and this could be intimate relationships or even with strangers. It could be you wearing a certain kind of shirt and someone misreads that and they judge you for that. Whatever the case may be. How do you free yourself of, and I say you, I mean me too. I mean, this is for me. This podcast is for me too. It is for me. How do you free yourself of a lifetime of behavior such as this? I mean, you hear older people talk all the time about When the older I got, the less I cared about what people thought, and I think that's true to a level. It definitely does not, at 45, it does not linger with me maybe as long as it used to in the past, but it's definitely still there, and I think it's there. That caring is still there in a level that's probably not the most healthy. So, what do I do? What do people like me do who find ourselves in this situation? So I begin to do some research on this, and I kind of want to start with the first kind of categorizing how we tend to categorize people's opinions about us. They're either highly valued, very highly valued, they're important, or we see them kind of on a lower level. They rank on a lower level. So, for example, highly valued might be our family. Highly valued might be when I say family, your immediate family, your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your husband, your children, your for those of us who have our chosen family, those people who are closest to you, your best buddies, your best Judies, your girl, your boy. Those people are probably on the high level. And then on an important level are our professional, our job, church, colleagues, bosses. And then on the lower level are more acquaintances, maybe casual organizations. So I think starting there is where we have to start in terms of how do we deal with our anxiety or our issues surrounding caring about what people think, and begin to be able to place them in the appropriate place where they need to go, right? So even here, we still have to check ourselves. We still have to check ourselves and ask the question, why do I care about what this person, what these people think about me? What is the negative outcome that I'm afraid of? Why do I care what this person thinks about me? And what is the negative outcome that I'm afraid of? And if you can answer that question for yourself, you begin this process I have found of realizing, okay, am I putting too much value on this person? Am I putting too much value on this situation? Am I allowing the possibility that this person may see my choice in a negative way, causing me to act in an inauthentic way? Are you with me? Am I allowing what others may think about my behavior to cause me to act in an inauthentic way? That in some way that I am behaving in a way that is different than what I would probably be doing if I did not care, or if I was free of the burden of this person's, and I'll put this on it, if I was free of the burden of my perceived expectation that this person has of me. And I think that's very important, because a lot of what we may be projecting upon other people is exactly that. It's something that's coming from us and not necessarily from them, although it can be, and a lot of times it is. But a part of this process is thinking, is figuring that part out from situation to situation. And so for me, that is always the litmus test for me, is that if I sit with myself and my conscience and I go, if what I'm doing is not harming, is not harmful, it's not illegal, it's not going to, you know, misrepresent, you know, what I'm trying to do, I guess let's say professionally in my goals or something to that degree. If I can just be honest with myself on those levels, then I can make my choices. I can respond in a more honest way. Because I have in my life, I have been in situations, high stakes situations, where I was strongly encouraged to make a certain decision as a leader from a boss, where things were laid out in front of me that this is the way that I should be, that they would recommend the choice that I take. And I listened and I processed what was being said to me. And I said, okay, I'll get back to you on this decision. And then I get home and I sit with myself and I maybe even take counsel with people I respect. But in the end, I'm back to myself. I'm back with me. And I have to make a decision based on my understanding and my interpretation of what is right. Now, I know what is easy, and I know what I could do if I make a certain decision that I know that everyone's leaning me towards, that this is the decision they want me to make, and it's a decision that I don't necessarily think is the right choice, that would go against my conscience. But it would be easier for me in the job, easier for me in the relationships. But I have to choose the conscience, and to make in this case make that professional decision based on what I felt was right, knowing full well that that was probably a demerit against me in the long run. But that was a part of my growth, that had got that I was able to do that at that point in my career. It definitely hasn't always been that way. I've definitely made mistakes in the past, where I made mistakes that were connected to me trying to appeal to others, or me craving acceptance, me being afraid of being rejected, living in that space. And of course, that still exists. Where we all still, no matter how far we grow in our development, there's always still some part of us that still wants to be accepted, that still does not want to be rejected, that still wants to be validated, that still wants to be praised and patted on the back. But, and that's the source of, why we may care what others think. This, also, wanting to belong to the community. But in the end, I think how it gets better is that we must choose to validate ourselves and accept ourselves. And of course, that is a journey in and of itself. How do we validate and accept ourselves? And I think we do that by moving in a true fashion to our conscience, moving in a true fashion to our heart and to our morals and to our humanity. And when I say morals, I don't mean religion. I just mean your sense of justice, your sense of the people, your sense of humanity, and moving in that space as best as we can. Now, I definitely am not doing this podcast from a space of I have arrived. I'm really doing it as a space from I am on the journey. And, I may have clocked in some miles, but I know I still have a long way to go. And I am interested in having this conversation with you about this topic, about why do we care what others think about us? Why do you care what others think about you? I would love to hear from you. Submit your comments or email me and let me know what you think. And maybe in a follow-up episode, we can have a conversation, and I can read your comments. I would really look forward to that. So thank you for your time here today. This has been a low-key episode, but I appreciate it, and I hope you do too. Once again, I'm Cleo, and you're listening to The Liberal Black, and I am so grateful for you. Be encouraged.